Now, Manchester United came from behind to beat Sheffield United last night, and there was a special moment in the final minutes at Old Trafford. 18-year-old Ethan Wheatley was given his debut by Erik ten Hag to become the club's 250th academy graduate to play for the first team. Let's reflect on that moment in the company of Manchester United's head of academy, Nick Cox. Nick, great to have you with us this afternoon. Must be a proud moment for Ethan, but a proud moment for so many people at Manchester United.
Yeah, absolutely. A wonderful moment for Ethan. A debut is always special for any young player. I think they remember it for the rest of their lives and their careers. But yesterday being the 250th debut, well, that's the culmination of a lot of hard work from many staff over 90 years. So there's a whole host of youth developers and managers that have contributed to that statistic. So a nice day to celebrate for everyone in the academy, but across the whole club as well.
Tell us firstly then a little bit about Ethan. Firstly, what type of player he is, but also what type of lad he is as well. Would he have been overawed and nervous when he came onto the field at Old Trafford last night?
Well, I defy anybody not to feel a little bit nervous when you run on a pitch or in a stadium of that magnitude. I don't think Ethan would mind me sharing that as a little boy. He's been with us since he was 8 and 9. He would have been a little shy and nervous, but you know, he's had a lot of time with us to experience all sorts of environments that have helped to develop him and nurture his character and his personality. So I think probably the overwhelming feeling for him yesterday would have been of excitement and just delight to get on the pitch and show everybody what he can do. He's been doing very well in our youth team of late. Those that watched the game would have seen him attempting to lead the line and hold the ball up, and he's a goal scorer. So there's a long way for him to go in his journey yet, but last night was certainly a step in the right direction. It's a lot of work ahead, but yeah, certainly we're encouraging him to stop and celebrate everything that he experienced on that pitch last night.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so interesting when you hear about coaches talk about young players, and a lot of time young lads are with clubs from 7, 8, 9, maybe even younger sometimes. What is it you look for in a young player where you think, uh-oh, we might have someone quite special here?
Yeah, there's a combination of things. I would suggest that, I mean, if you're going to play in the Premier League these days, you have to be athletic. You have to have some competent techniques, dependent on what position you play in. But I think in the Premier League, and particularly at our football club, you've got to have character. You've got to have a big personality. You've got to be a driven young person with a love of the game, with a desire to want to learn and improve, a competitive fire within, and a little bit of resilience. And I think Ethan has all of those things, definitely.
I think back to the way that someone like Marcus Rashford burst onto the scene, Nick. Can you get them ready to do something like that in their first game, first couple of games for a club as big as Manchester United? Can you ever truly prepare someone to go out and produce their best straight away?
I think Marcus is probably a little bit of an exception to the rule. We're blessed at this football club, actually, that we've seen, of all the exceptions, they tend to be here. So Jesse Lingard would have burst onto the scene as a young lad, and Marcus Rashford and Scott McTominay was here from the age of 9 and obviously debuted relatively young. Alejandro Garnacho. But the typical journey is really a long, slow, steady one. Maybe lots of setbacks. It doesn't always go well. There's a lot of kind of speed bumps in the road along the way. And it's not a smooth line to success. That's probably more typical. So a lot of our time that we spend with our players is educating them around how to take the opportunity when it comes and being prepared for the kind of the highs and lows of the game. It's never straightforward. There's always highs and lows. We're trying to teach our players to remain consistent when the world about them is maybe a little bit chaotic.
It's really interesting, Nick, that you talk there about highs and lows, because I remember growing up as a kid, and one of the first football teams I remember was the Manchester United team, which included so many of the class of '92. But as an academy director, do you have to be quite realistic that might actually never happen again, or might not happen for 50 years, that if you're getting one young lad through a season or two, you're doing really well, and that those schools of Beckham and Giggs and Scholes is very rarely going to happen?
The bar's high at this football club. Obviously, the Busby Babes, the class of '92, they're iconic groups of young people that again, were exceptional groups. I think we're blessed at this moment in time. We've got a lot of young players around the squad. You'll see Kobbie Mainoo, Alejandro, Garnacho, Marcus, and then many more that have been on the bench in recent months. But we're really mindful in our programme that trying to make a debut in the Premier League is a really difficult thing to do. We're trying to prepare boys to play at Old Trafford, but we're just as proud of the ones that go off and play across the leagues, across the world. But also, we're really focused on making sure that the process of developing young players is one that's life-enriching, life-changing. We want the boys who spend time with us to reflect on the journey, regardless of whether they're successful on the pitch or not. We want them to look back and see it as an amazing part of their childhood. And I think academies in general really embrace that ethos of making sure that the journey is one that enriches life, is memorable, friendships are built, new skills are taught, and boys disappear into adult life better for the experience. Obviously, our purpose here is to support boys to play in the first team and our winning team, but that's not the journey that everyone takes, but everyone can be successful in their own way.
You touched there on the Busby Babes, and we've spoken about the class of 92. I think it's 80 years now that every matchday squad for United has included an academy graduate. As a member of staff, is that something that brings a little bit of pressure to you? You think, well, we've got to keep this run going because it's an amazing achievement.
Listen, it's a lovely pressure. So we've been developing players here for 90 years, over 4,000 games with a graduate of the youth programme in the first team squad. And some of those names that have contributed those statistics are iconic, aren't they? Whether that be Beckham or Giggs or Best or many of the famous names, Bobby Charlton. There is a pressure. But that pressure is really lovely. If there was no pressure, it would be a really unsatisfying place to work. The expectation here is huge, but that expectation is what gives the staff real focus, and also that expectation is what gives the young boys ultimately the opportunities to follow in the footsteps of greats. All of our boys are just ordinary kids. They end up doing extraordinary things because they're surrounded by inspirational environments and inspirational players that they're attempting to follow in the footsteps of.
We've spoken a lot about young players who've looked sort of to the manner born when coming into the first team. Kobbie Mainoo would fall into that category. Do you see that he would have any issues in terms of the occasion if he was to make it into Gareth Southgate's England squad this summer?
I think Kobbie's faced up to some really challenging environments so far this season and coped admirably. We've seen him play against Liverpool at Old Trafford. That's a ferocious atmosphere always, and he coped really well, and he's played in some big Champions League games, so we know he's got the character to cope. He's done ever so well this season, but I think it's really important that we don't get too carried away. He's a young player. He's got a lot to learn by his own admission. He knows where he wants to get better. He knows where he wants to improve. He's at the beginning of his career. It's going really, really well for him at this moment in time. I'm sure there'll be a point where maybe he doesn't find it quite so easy, or he hits a little bit of some struggle. That's natural for any young player. We're really, really proud of him right now, and who knows what the future might hold for him. I know that he's got big dreams. It's going to be exciting to watch it unfold.
Are you more impressed sometimes with a young player? So Kobbie may be a good example that it's been a tricky season for Erik ten Hag for the first team at times, that he's come in and made that impact, and that maybe for some of the class of 92 it might have been a fraction easier because of the success they were having under Sir Alex Ferguson at the time.
Listen, I think the challenge is huge. It doesn't matter what team you're playing for in the Premier League or how that team's doing. The challenge for a young player to go and play in the biggest league in the world is huge. I think we've seen a lot of young players at this club cope really, really well with that challenge, but that's not down to luck. That's great support for the young players, and that's not just the academy. The academy is obviously accountable for the development of players in their younger years, but really youth development is a whole club thing. So you need to make sure that your manager is supportive of the young players, which he is. Erik ten Hag's given many debuts in recent seasons. Darren Fletcher, the first team coaching staff, their alignment with the academy, and all the support for the young players off the pitch in terms of all the new experiences, in terms of exposure to the media and things like that. It's not by luck, it's by design. The boys have got brilliant support, but also there's a little bit about it being within them as well. It's about that character that I talked about earlier. They have to arrive to the process with that character, and therefore that's something that we definitely look for, and that character is developed by many people. That's down to families and friendships and school teachers just as much as it is the staff here at the academy.
I'm really interested as well by the sort of recruitment process to an academy too, Nick, and that probably in days gone by, we've spoken about the 80 years that United have been finding academy graduates. A lot of it would have come from Bury or Bolton or Rochdale, but the process of finding someone like an Alejandro Garnacho, what goes into that?
So that's changed in recent seasons. With Brexit, that obviously means that the areas that we work and recruit from have shifted to be just UK based, but we'll have a network of scouts looking for young players with high potential, looking for some of the qualities that I talked about. Our scouts trying to predict where the boys might be able to get to in the future, not necessarily how good are they today, but how might they improve and what might they be able to deliver in the future. And yeah, we're looking for young boys with a love of the game, with a great character, with big personalities, with a love of the ball. You know, the winning blend here at Manchester United has always been the best local boys who understand the club and what it means to its community, with the best players from further afield, and you put those two groups together and they support each other, and you get some innovation coming from fresh ideas from players arriving to the club, and you get this idea that we're protecting a spirit of Manchester United from the local players. So we've always attempted to do that. I think you look at any great Manchester United side, any good Manchester United youth team, that's been the balance, and we're still trying to do that now. We're trying to make sure that we pair up a Kobbie Mainoo with an Alejandro Garnacho, and that's always been the approach, and that's what we'll continue to strive to do.
Just wanted to explore a couple of wider points then, and maybe the role of the academy moving forward. It does seem like first teams, because of the number of games, are getting more injuries. We've seen that at United this season. Also with PSR and the focus on that, selling players because they become baseline profit. So therefore, the importance of producing players not just for Manchester United, but one that other Premier League teams can buy, or Championship teams, or clubs across Europe, that role is super important too moving forwards.
I think you're right. I think those factors are all going to see clubs put an emphasis on young players and youth development. But I don't think there's, at this football club, it's about more than that. This football club has seen young players help us survive our darkest days in terms of Munich, and young players have seen us be on our greatest days, whether that be winning Premier Leagues or Champions Leagues. It's in our blood. Our fans expect to see it. It's a way of life around here. So I think it's a non-negotiable that young players will always be a part of this football club. And yes, there are some extra factors to consider, but I don't think that's our main driver. Our main driver is that's just how this football club does it.
Talking of how the football club does it, do you see anything changing significantly given the role that INEOS have at the club now?
I think it's a really exciting time for us. Obviously, it's very early days, and everyone's learning about our new colleagues and how we might be able to work together. But the general feeling is that we feel greatly supported. We're really, really excited. I think from an academy point of view, INEOS and the guys will bring expertise from other sports and from all over the world. And we're in a really good place as an academy, but the moment that you think you've cracked it is the moment that you fall behind the competitors. So to keep thinking forward and to keep innovating is really important. And with the extra expertise and the extra skill and the winners that we're bringing in the likes of Sir Dave Brailsford and Jim Radcliffe, that can only help us be even better. And I think everyone's really excited about that.
Just finally then to finish, I know you say you never want to think you've cracked it, and we started off by talking about young Ethan. There was a game he scored twice in recently where you beat Liverpool's under-18s 9-1. So is it safe to say there might be a few more coming off that production line in the years to come?
Believe it or not, we don't get too bogged down with the results of our teams. Our focus is always individual development. Of course, when boys are 17, 18, 19, you want the boys to be part of a cohesive team and know how to win and have to have regular kind of practice of learning how to win in tough environments. We have some great games in the Northwest. We play against some really good competitive academies. That was a particularly good day, but it doesn't always look like that. But the main focus here is the young players, and we're proud that we've got a lot of good players, we're looking forward to seeing how their journeys unfold. I'm privileged in the role I have. It's really exciting to see the growth and development of young people. And it's fair to say that there will be boys that follow in the footsteps of Ethan in the coming months and years.
It's a very diplomatic answer about beating Liverpool 9-1. Look, we could genuinely speak for an hour, Nick. It's been fascinating to talk to you. Pass on our congratulations to Ethan and his family, and thanks so much for speaking to us this afternoon.